Hi, I am Dr. Greg Bushman, and today we're going to be addressing team dynamics. Specifically, we're going to be talking about the formation stages of a team and why a team charter is so important when it comes to building high-performing teams. One of the things that I did want to address, first off, is we're going to be talking to both people that are in the workforce as well as students who are in our colleges and universities and need to understand why it's so important to have a team charter and understand that the different generations join and assimilate into teams in completely different ways. Matter of fact, in January of 2024, an employment report came out that basically said 31% of all hiring managers are 100% avoiding hiring Gen Zs, and it was for several reasons. One of those was they didn't know how to work in a team. They didn't understand how to be adaptable, flexible. They didn't have the resilience that it takes to overcome issues that come up in work. And we all know that the most difficult part of any job is dealing with the human element. If we're an expert at what we do, we can do our jobs well. It's that teamwork part that depends on whether or not we're going to be a underperforming, a mediocre, an effective, or a high-performing organization. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So the format of our discussion is presentation. We're going to go through a few slides. I'm going to talk about the information that is on the slides very quickly because I don't want to belabor them. I will be also sending out and posting several support documents with this. There's two handouts. Two of those handouts are from a university standpoint, from case studies on how to create an effective team charter. And you'll get a copy, of course, of a PDF of the presentation, and then a remote template for how to create a team charter, for remote management, for remote teams. Not just, hey, I can fill this out online remote, but actually for helping us manage remote teams, because we all know post-COVID, remote teams are here to stay. And just FYI, in my corporate career, I managed remote teams for 20 years. So COVID was like, hey, this is just what I've been doing for 20 years. And so a lot of that experience is built into, creating that team charter. The second piece, or the second template, is for a traditional in-office team charter. So without delay, let's get started. I'm going to go ahead and share out my screen. I'm going to share my PowerPoint out. And again, I will share a PDF file of this. So let's get the PowerPoint launched. There we go. So team dynamics, right? That's what we're going to talk about. I love that graphic because if you do it right, it is literally like a rocket ship. I will tell you that every team that I've led, I've had the pleasure, actually, I learned this from a long-term friend of mine who was the senior vice president that I've worked for on and off for about 15 years. One of my best bosses ever. And he is the one who introduced me on how to build high-performing teams. And I tell you, he is now the senior vice president of a global organization. I left corporate at the regional. I had national responsibilities as well, working with him. But suffice to say, I chose the consulting route and the education route, and we're both loving life because finally at this stage in life, sometimes it's great to do what you always dreamed of doing, which is what we are both getting to do. So what you're seeing on screen are the files, the support documents that I'll be posting and distributing. The Developing the Team Charter handout and the Jumpstart Your Team's Charter, those are both documents that will help guide you through the process, especially the clarification and question answering part of the process. And then you see the Strategic Remote Team and the Strategic Team Charter samples. That is a full document that walks through all 5 stages of team creation and performance. And then finally, like we said, you get a copy of this presentation. So there's different types of teams. We need to understand that before we move on. It's really super simple. Without teams, it's just a bunch of people doing their own thing, doing their own jobs, working as individuals. Well, unfortunately, a traditional work group in corporate America or even in the classroom is pretty much just a bunch of individuals doing their own thing, and they just happen to be contributing to some form of a common goal. There's no structure, there's no charter, there's nothing that defines how you're going to communicate, how you're going to resolve conflict, what good looks like. It's just several people working together, hopefully with the idea that they're going to be successful at whatever they do. Moving up the scale to effective groups, this is actually where structure begins. And you can't typically be an effective group unless you start with a team charter. And what's interesting is that right now, take a moment, take a chill pill, don't compare your performance to other groups within your own organization. That is called corporate blindness. When we compare our performance to someone in our own organization, that is literally practicing or the definition of corporate blindness. We must take and judge ourselves and our performance against a best practice, against an industry standard, against the tier 1 companies that are in our industry, or if we're a student, the tier 1 students. That way we actually get a true view of how we're performing. So you might feel like you're an effective or a high performing group, but if you stepped outside your industry or outside your company compared to the rest of the business world, or if you're a student compared to the rest of the academic world, that might not necessarily be true. So with that said, let's look at what pseudo groups, traditional work groups, effective and high performing groups look like. That way we can have some form of a standard to kind of compare what our group looks like. And this is especially important if you're a leader or a manager, so you can kind of identify where you're at. So a pseudo group, pretty simple. No structural planning, no team charter, no communication plan. People are just assigned to work together, really don't have much of a common interest except for, maybe turning out a paper or whatever the company might do. It really is more about, the individual's set of work that they've got to get done. Usually this is ranked, and this happens a lot in sales organizations. And I worked in sales and marketing and IT software industry for 20 plus years. And let me tell you, this happens a lot in the sales arena. And people are ranked highest to lowest. Oh, you're my A team. You're my B team. You're my C team. Well, if I'm the C team, and if you're not going to help me develop to become a B or an A player, why would I stay here? And that's actually exactly what happened to GE's leadership. It was great at first, and then the end results is that hey, you're A team, you're B team, you're C team. All the people that were C team leaders ended up going and working for somebody else, and it gutted GE's middle management. That was about 20 years ago. They've recovered since then. And hey, I've got all kinds of respect for Jack Welch, but let me tell you, you don't want to rank your people. What you want to do is you want everybody on your team to become an A player. And that's our job as leaders, managers, is to make everybody an A player. All right, so team type 2, traditional work group. Very little structuring, a little bit more formal, because you're assigned to work together and you actually do have some common goals. Again, this is ranked from highest to the lowest. So people actually see each other as competition, and internal competition is destructive. There's enough trouble, with our competitors. Why in the world would we create internal competition? This also is indicated by there's very little joint work. Everybody's kind of doing their own thing, and then turning that maybe into the boss or whatever, the boss puts it all together. Members are accountable, but separately. There's no common goal, no common rewards, and it creates various levels of commitment. Some people would be really committed because they believe in team, others are all about themselves. Now, the effective group, team type 3, right? This actually is thoughtful structural planning. They're going to use a team charter. They're assigned together and they have specific roles that they play on the team. And it's kind of like, think of a pie, right? All right. If you got a pie and you got 6 pieces and only 4 pieces are there, you don't got a whole pie. If you get paid on the whole pie and you only have 4 out of the 6 pieces, you're not going home with the pie, right? So it's super duper important that each individual person knows how important they are and the success that they play to the team. And so that builds on each other's performance and it encourages each other to make sure that they're getting their job done. It actually works on what are called positive interdependent goals and rewards. If you don't have part of your reward system based on the team performance, or you can even have interdependent goals or rewards between 2 people. What does that do? Matter of fact, I've actually seen people that don't like each other, but if they want to be successful, they have to work together successfully. And even though they didn't care for one another's personalities, whatever was going on between the 2 of them, they had to come together to figure out a way to get their job done if they wanted to get paid the full amount of their bonus. I'm telling you what, interdependent goals and interdependent rewards are critical for actually having effective work groups. Finally, the decision-making process allows open and challenging dialogue. We're going to get to that when we get to the storming stage of team development. So, because it's super important to understand how to handle conflict and controversy. The highest type of team is high team performing teams. These are highly structured. Each member knows exactly what they're doing. Matter of fact, we did these. This is something we love to do. And we would sit down before we would go into an account or see a customer, or whatever we were doing. And we'd sit down with the regional president. I was over an entire region, so there were multiple, marketplace presidents. So the marketplace president might have 1 or 2 or 3 states. Some of us at the regional level had, more than that. And we would all sit down as a team. The regional vice president might be there. The regional president might be there. Of course, as I said, the area vice president, marketplace vice presidents would be there. And we're like, hey, what role are we going to play? There was no ego involved here, right? But we made sure that we had a structure that we were going to work in when it came to a project or an account. That created high levels of commitment, and we knew that we couldn't be successful or maximize our earnings unless we all succeeded. So part of our reward plans were interdependent. In other words, if I didn't perform, then one of my teammates or one of my peers or somebody I reported to did get their full bonus. And so it was super important to make sure that we had interdependencies and a 360-degree view, both lateral or both horizontal and vertical interdependent goals, right? One of the things that characterizes high-performing teams is they do lots of stuff outside of work. It's not just about being at work and having work friends. They actually get together outside of work and they know each other as a human being. And of course, typically high-performing teams, everyone is great at their job, and it is the leader's job to mentor and coach them into that, into being an excellent, into excellence in their role. This is rarely achieved. So let's start out at the first and talk about how that rare achievement might actually happen. So first off, phases in team building. There's the forming stage. That's the structure. That's what we're talking about today. The norming stage is where people kind of start to figure out where they fit in the team and, jockey for position for a little bit and start functioning well. The storming stage is where that conflict happens, where, power shifts and one person might want a little more power, or maybe they think they've got the best idea and they're a little forceful about it, while there's somebody else that has a strong personality and they conflict, right? And there's this tension. The great news is if coached and managed and led right, conflict turns into controversy. Controversy is super important. Controversy is this. Controversy is one or more people that have different opinions or ideas, but want to come together to solve the problem and then move forward. So again, conflict is just fighting. Controversy, you got to turn conflict into controversy. And this is a mental attitude that leaders have to, and team members have to help each team member embrace. Controversy. We all have our own opinions. We all have our own great ideas. We as a group must come together to discuss how we can take parts of each of our ideas and then create something dynamic as a whole and move forward. When you do that, it builds mutual respect, it builds camaraderie, loyalty, open communication, all the things you want. Tragically, most teams never make it past the storming stage. People get offended. People don't know how to respect one another. They don't know how to use a creative problem-solving system or the foresight teaming model to work through collaboration issues. And they just go their own way. People quit. People leave organizations, on and on and on. And the sad part is that that means that that organization or that team will never make it past an average everyday workplace or work group. You have to get past stage 3 to become an effective team. So you can't actually move to the performing stage without getting past the storming stage. And when you get to the performing stage, that's when you become an effective team. And then over time, you can become a high-performing team. And high-performing team, you're going to outperform all of your industry statistics. Finally, disillusion. Every great thing has an end. I know that we all have had jobs and teams we wish we could have worked for until retirement, but unfortunately, sometimes it doesn't happen. Or if you're a student, classes end and we have to move on. So let's talk about how this forming stage happens. We're just going to take a few more minutes and we're going to wrap this up. So when you talk about forming, first off, you want to have clear group goals. All right. This evokes high levels of commitment. By the way, each one of these stages is in your remote and your traditional office team charter template. So we'll work through each one of these one by one. Guideline number 2, make sure you clarify how you're going to communicate. You know, where are you going to store your documents? You're going to use Google Docs. You're going to use OneNote, SharePoint, you know, all the different Microsoft platforms that are out there. If you're using Mac, you're going to set something up in the iCloud. How are you going to communicate? Two-way and open is the best. And let me tell you, let feelings flow with ideas, because we as human beings cannot separate ourselves from emotions. Part of the decision-making and team collaboration process is working through the emotions that we have as human beings. Form 3, or guideline 3, leadership should be distributed across the team. Not, don't just let the same person lead over and over and over again. Make sure that you're changing the roles. You know, every 2 weeks, change who facilitates your weekly or bi-weekly, monthly meeting. It helps people develop their skills. It helps them develop critical communication and leadership skills. It's super important because that person that may not have the outgoing personality in your team might be the one that's sitting on the answer that your team needs for you to get your maximum bonus. So make sure that we're doing everything as leaders and mentors and team members to pull the best out of each other's skill sets. Power distribution is exactly the same way. Be careful. Don't let one or two individuals try to overpower the rest of the team. Make sure as a leader or a manager and as a team, you have a way to make sure that the power is distributed evenly. Matter of fact, like the example I was giving where we might have a regional, a local, an MVP, an AVP, all of these people together. No ego. It doesn't matter what our titles are. What matters is how are we going to be successful? That's what matters. So guideline 5 in the decision-making process, I'm just going to say flat out, significant decisions should be made by consensus. It is proven to be the highest level decision-making period. The best way to do that is to use a creative problem-solving system. It is, matter of fact, Forbes actually ranked, it's the oldest, but there's also a team collaboration model attached to it called Foresight. And Forbes ranked the new book, Good Team, Bad Team, Good Team, which is based on creative problem solving and using the Foresight process as the #1 most important read for CEOs. IBM ranks it #1. It's used all over the world. I can't obviously recommend it enough. Insignificant decisions can simply be made by the leader. Don't waste a bunch of time on unimportant decisions, but somewhere in your document, make sure that you're spelling out how you're going to make those super important decisions, right? So thank you. I'm going to stop my share real quick just to say goodbye and how much I appreciate you taking the 20 minutes with me to talk about team dynamics and the team charter. So I will distribute or you can email me and I will send you those 5 documents that I promised. And again, anything that I can help you to do, any advice or anything else on how to develop a strong team charter so that you can move to that effective team level and then go on to be a high performing team, I'm more than willing to do. Thanks. Dr. Bushman signing off. Have an awesome day.